Speed and Nguyen's Deep Dive podcast is an official podcast made by Speed and Nguyen with the voice made from Google's Notebook LM. Do not reproduce our podcast without permissions from the owner. Welcome to the Speed and Nguyen's Deep Dive podcast. Today, just imagine the most powerful being on Earth, right?
Oh, yeah. The absolute apex predator.
Exactly. An indestructible god who has just terrorized the globe for 5 whole years. But then he dies not in some massive blaze of glory, but literally begging for his life on the Oval Office floor.
Yeah, it's a remarkably heavy way to go out. We are looking at the culmination of 5 entire seasons of storytelling here.
Right. And today, for our listeners, we're unpacking this highly anticipated, intensely brutal, and fiercely debated series finale of The Boys, Season 5, Episode 8, titled Blood and Bone.
And the reactions we are seeing online, they're just as polarized and chaotic as the actual world the show portrays.
Absolutely chaotic. And to make sense of all that noise for you today, we're pulling from a really massive stack of sources.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. We've got reviews and deep dive analyses from Collider, IGN, Forbes, Esquire, and Screen Rant. Plus, we have this incredibly revealing interview with the showrunner, Eric Kripke, from Creative Screenwriting.
That interview is honestly the key to unlocking this whole thing.
It totally is, because our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize not just what happened in this blood-soaked finale, but why it happened exactly the way it did, and why it has left the fan base so deeply, deeply divided.
Right, because it really split the audience right down the middle.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the television graveyard is packed with bad endings. Did this show stick the landing or crash and burn?
That's the million-dollar question for anyone who tuned in, right? And to answer it, we really need to adjust our expectations of what this finale was fundamentally trying to be in the first place.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you went into this expecting a traditional sky-shattering epic superhero battle where the good guys just punch the bad guys into the sun.
Like a Marvel movie or something?
Exactly. If you wanted that, you were probably pretty disappointed. Because this finale wasn't about epic scope. It was a deeply intimate, intentionally messy conclusion.
Intimate and messy is exactly right.
Yeah, it focused on the absolute corruption of power, the persistence of these massive institutions, and the incredibly painful reality of just trying to hold on to hope in a very cynical world.
Let's talk about that messiness, especially during the infiltration of the White House, which is just peak chaos for this series. But before we get to the big guy Homelander, we have to talk about Sister Sage.
Oh, Sage. Her arc here is fascinating.
It really is. So just as a quick refresher for you, Sister Sage's superpower is hypercognition. Basically, her brain processes information so fast, she's essentially a living, breathing supercomputer.
Literally the smartest person on the planet.
Right. And what does she do during this final raid? She voluntarily lets Kimiko use her newly acquired radiation powers to lobotomize her.
Which is just wild to watch.
It's crazy. She literally sacrifices her unparalleled genius just to feel a normal, quiet, human baseline.
Which is such a profound statement. What's fascinating here is how the show treats power as a curse rather than a gift.
Yeah, it's not a fun superpower to have.
Not at all. Sister Sage has shown throughout her time on the show that being the smartest person in the room or the world really is just an unbearable, exhausting weight.
Like her brain is constantly running a million tabs at once.
Exactly, seeing every possible terrifying outcome. She has literally lobotomized herself in the past just to take a break from the deafening noise of her own intellect.
So doing it permanently here is, well, it's a huge shift.
It is. Her decision to permanently strip away her greatest asset to help the team and to finally just be normal really sets the stage. It establishes the ultimate theme of this entire finale.
Which is the violent stripping away of superhuman exceptionalism.
Precisely. Taking away what makes them gods.
And that idea of stripping away power leads directly into Kimiko's arc in that very same sequence. If you've been following along, you know Kimiko has been struggling to harness this massive, unstable, radioactive blast she got from Soldier Boy's old research.
She just couldn't control it at all.
Right, she couldn't. But then she has this vision, this sudden, really emotional memory of Frenchie, who passed away earlier.
Such a tragic loss.
It was. And that emotional trigger, that visceral grief, is what finally allows her to unlock the power. She unleashes this massive energy blast right at Homelander, and the radiation completely scorches the compound V right out of his blood.
Meaning the chemical drug that actually gives Soupies their abilities is just gone. The physiological foundation of his entire existence is erased in a second.
Which brings us right into the Oval Office. I mean, this is the climax. This is the showdown you, me, and literally every viewer have been waiting for since day one.
Oh, absolutely. The tension was off the charts.
Homelander, the indestructible, terrifying god who has laser-eyed countless people in half, is suddenly just mortal.
Just a guy.
Just a guy. And his reaction, he doesn't go out swinging. He doesn't have some final defiant stand. He has a pathetic live television breakdown.
He really just completely crumbles.
He is literally on his knees, weeping, begging for his life. He offers to do incredibly degrading things to Butcher, like offering to perform grotesque anatomical acts or eat excrement just to stay alive.
It's hard to even listen to.
It really is. And Butcher just looks at him in pure disgust, takes a crowbar, impales Homelander's head, and spills his brains right across the Oval Office carpet.
It is a staggering, ugly image, and it completely subverts the standard superhero showdown trope.
No grand speeches.
Right. There's no grand final monologue about ideology. There's no clash of glowing energy beams. It's just a terrified, powerless, pathetic man being beaten to death with a piece of metal by a very angry guy.
But here's where I have to push back a little, and this is something a lot of fans felt too. The reviewers over at Fansided pointed out that this whole sequence felt incredibly rushed.
Yeah, that was a huge talking point online.
They actually compared it to the villain Vecna in Stranger Things, saying Homelander was basically done and dusted halfway through the episode. If Homelander is the ultimate big bad of the entire franchise, why does his death feel so sudden?
Like it was just a box to check off.
Exactly. It felt almost like a formality instead of an epic final boss fight. Why wouldn't Kripke and the writers draw that out and give the fans the massive brawl they wanted?
Well, it's a completely valid critique regarding the pacing. You naturally want a big payoff after 5 seasons. But if we look at the psychology of the show, and specifically Homelander's psychology, it makes perfect thematic sense.
How so?
Eric Kripke explained in his interview that Homelander's ultimate punishment wasn't dying. His ultimate punishment was powerlessness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, throughout the entire series, Homelander equated his immense physical power with happiness and worth. He thought more power, more fear would fill that empty void inside him, but he remained utterly miserable.
Because his entire identity was built on external validation and physical supremacy.
Exactly. Taking away his life is one thing, but taking away his power reduces him to exactly what he despised the most.
A weak, vulnerable human being.
Right. For Kripke, giving Homelander a pathetic, weeping, begging death was the only fitting end for a character whose entire existence was just a thin facade of strength.
So an epic, drawn-out battle would have actually ruined that point.
Exactly. Fighting to the bitter end would have dignified him. It would have validated his self-image as a warrior god. This death stripped him of all dignity.
Wow. Okay, that actually completely reframes it. It wasn't about the physical fight at all. It was about the absolute humiliation of the character.
Precisely.
But the thing is, the death of Homelander doesn't magically fix the man who killed him. Billy Butcher is still deeply broken.
Yeah, he doesn't just ride off into the sunset.
No, not at all. With Homelander dead, you'd think Butcher would find peace, but he is completely lost. His surrogate son, Ryan, has rejected him. His wife is long gone. And then the final thread keeping him sane snaps.
The dog.
Yes. Butcher's beloved bulldog, Terror, dies peacefully in his sleep from old age.
It's an incredibly sad moment. And just as a side note from the source material, the real-life pit bull who played Terror actually passed away from old age shortly after Season 5 wrapped filming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which just makes that scene even heavier to watch.
Oh, that is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But if you know Butcher, you know Terror was his anchor. With Terror gone, the monster inside Butcher completely takes the wheel.
He just snaps.
He decides, tell with all of it. He grabs the soup-killing virus, this engineered pathogen we've been tracking all season, heads straight to Vought Tower, and plans to load it right into the building's massive sprinkler system.
His goal isn't just to kill the bad guys anymore.
No, he wants to wipe out every single soup on the planet, a literal genocide.
He's fully crossed the line from anti-hero to the very villain he always claimed to be fighting.
Right, but Hughie intercepts him, and as Butcher is about to release the virus, he looks at Hughie and has a sudden vision of his own late younger brother, Lenny.
Because Hughie has always reminded Butcher of Lenny.
Exactly. And that single fleeting moment of hesitation gives Hughie the opening he desperately needs. Hughie draws his gun and shoots Butcher right in the stomach.
Just a brutal, sudden end.
And Butcher, mortally wounded, makes peace with Hughie before dying, right there in his arms on the generic corporate floor.
It's a profoundly tragic end. The man who started this massive global war dies not on a blazing battlefield against a god, but stopped by the one kid he actually allowed himself to care about.
But again, I gotta play devil's advocate here, based on the source material. If you've read Garth Ennis's original comic books, you know this television ending is a massive deviation.
Oh, it's fundamentally different.
In the comics, Butcher goes totally off the deep end and brutally, methodically murders his own team. He kills Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko before Hughie finally manages to stop it.
It's extremely dark.
So why did the showrunners give Butcher such a comparatively soft death instead of the absolute carnage of the comic book ending?
It really comes down to the fundamental difference between the medium of a comic book and the medium of a long-running television show. Or at least according to Kripke's philosophy.
Okay, how so?
Well, the comic's ending is deeply, fundamentally cynical. It asserts that violence permanently corrupts and that everyone who touches it is ultimately destroyed by it, no exceptions.
Just total nihilism.
Exactly. But Kripke felt that was simply too bleak for the television adaptation they had built. He views the core of the TV series as a struggle to maintain humanity in an incredibly inhumane world.
So slaughtering the found family he built would have just been too dark for the viewers.
Yeah, having Butcher murder and Kimiko would have erased any underlying sense of hope the show had cultivated over 5 years. Instead, ending the conflict with just Butcher and Hughie, an incredibly intimate emotional confrontation, honored their complex relationship.
It acknowledged that Butcher's monster side had indeed taken over.
Right, which is why he had to be stopped. But his hesitation, caused by seeing Hughie as his brother Lenny, proved that a tiny shred of his humanity survived right up until the very final second. It preserved the show's fragile thread of hope.
That makes total sense. Is prioritizing intimacy over sheer shock value. But speaking of shock value and violence, let's look at the rest of the team. When you think about the body count for Season 5, who do you think was the deadliest member of the boys?
Most people would probably guess Butcher.
Right. Or maybe Kimiko or Starlight. But you'd be wrong. Screen Rant actually did the math. And the deadliest member of the team this season was Mother's Milk.
The guy without any superpowers.
The supposed moral compass of the group.
It's a brilliant, dark subversion. You have to remember, spent the earlier part of the season deeply traumatized from his time locked in the Starlight internment camps.
He went through hell.
He really did. He was pushed to his absolute psychological breaking point, and as a result, he adopted a much darker kill-or-be-killed mentality. He essentially echoed Butcher's ruthlessness.
Proving that you don't need compound V in your veins to be a lethal force.
Exactly.
And the tactical details of his kills are just insane. Think about how a normal human fights these walking weapons. Fights Love Sausage Asupe with a very specific prehensile anatomical enhancement.
Yeah, we don't need to get too graphic, but...
Right, well, how do you fight that? Literally uses the Soupy's own anatomy against him, wrapping it around his neck and choking him to death with it.
Just brutal.
Then he takes out Shalene, another Soupy, by using her own hubris. He distracts her with a rat and forces a massive, fatal drug overdose via multiple needles before she can even react.
He's using strategy and psychology where superpowers fail.
Exactly. And the crowning achievement, he takes out Father, the megachurch Soupy, who has a deadly sonic scream.
Right, the guy who can kill you just by opening his mouth.
So how do you stop him? Sneaks up behind him and forces a custom-made, indestructible ball gag into Father's mouth.
Man.
Here is the best part. The gag was actually a gift given to Father by Vought's own PR executive, Ashley.
That is just incredible irony.
So when Father instinctively tries to use his sonic blast, the indestructible gag holds. The sound waves have nowhere to go, the pressure builds instantly, and Father's head just explodes from his own power.
Which is grotesque, yes, but it perfectly highlights a crucial theme for you to think about.
What's that?
Imen's descent into brutality shows how fighting monsters relentlessly forces you to become one, even if you are fighting for the absolute right reasons. He had to become just as vicious as the Soupies to survive them.
It's the old he who fights monsters warning playing out in real time. And while we're talking about poetic justice, we have to mention the Deep's demise.
Oh, finally.
After 5 seasons of desperate attempts to be loved, to be relevant, to be corporate's favorite pet, Annie drags him down to the ocean for a fight. Now, the Deep thinks he has the upper hand because, obviously, he commands the sea.
But he forgot his own actions.
Right. Earlier in the season, he alienated the entire marine ecosystem. He sided with Vauthwaite over an Alaskan oil pipeline burst that killed billions of marine animals.
A total corporate sellout move.
Exactly. So when Annie throws him in the water, the sea creatures don't come to his rescue. They turn on him. He is impaled by a tentacled creature and literally eaten alive by sharks. It's just pure distilled irony.
The show has always excelled at that kind of poetic justice. The Deep is destroyed by the very environment he claimed to protect, but ultimately sold out for corporate approval. It's a fitting end.
But that brings us to the big, lingering reality of this finale that we have to address. Think about everything that just happened. Homelander is dead. Sister Sage neutralized herself. Oh, Father's head popped. The Deep is fish food. Butcher is gone.
The board is basically cleared.
But after all the blood, after all the sacrifice, the dust settles, and Stanaker calmly steps right back out of the shadows.
Right back where he started.
He walks right into the boardroom and resumes his role as CEO of Vought International.
So what does this all mean? Did our heroes actually change anything at all? If Vought survives, doesn't that render the whole 5-season arc completely pointless for the viewer? It's a great question, and it's the ultimate satirical point the show is making. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Vought surviving proves that the cycle of cutthroat capitalism and institutional evil is practically immortal.
It just never ends.
It persists, regardless of who is temporarily sitting in the big chair or which shiny new superhero is currently printed on the lunchbox. You can kill all the bad apples you want, but if the orchard itself is toxic, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Edgar stepping casually back in shows that the corporate system is designed to absorb massive damage, rebrand it, and just keep profiting.
That sounds incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a viewer looking for a win, that feels like a gut punch.
It is deeply depressing on a macro level. You can't beat the house. However, Kripke argues that while fighting the massive institution might be a losing battle, the real victory is found on the micro level.
Oh, like for the characters themselves.
Yes. True victory for these characters wasn't saving a world from Vought, it was saving themselves from the cycle of violence. Just look at where they all end up.
That's true. Hughie actually declines the president's offer to run the Federal Bureau of Superhuman Affairs. He could have had massive political power, but he walks away.
He chooses a normal life.
Yeah, he and Annie are running a little peck shop, just like where he worked back in season 1 before this whole nightmare started. And Annie is pregnant. They are naming the baby Robin, after Hughie's girlfriend who was killed by A-Train in the very first episode.
Full circle.
Mother's Milk steps away from the tactical violence and adopts Ryan. Kimiko moves to France to live quietly with a dog. They essentially choose to just stop fighting.
Exactly. They won by surviving. They chose love, family, and normalcy over an endless, unwinnable war against corporate superpowers. They stepped off the battlefield.
But that nuanced, quiet victory for the characters is exactly what caused such a massive uproar in the real world. You'd think a show about the dangers of toxic fandom would have a highly self-aware audience, but the reaction to this finale proved the exact opposite.
The irony is pretty thick.
It really is. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the critical score for the finale is sitting at a very solid 86%. The critics understood the themes. But over on IMDb, the user score absolutely plummeted to a 6.2, which is shockingly low for a show this universally praised.
The fan divide is stark, and it stems from a massive clash between what the show actually fundamentally about and what a loud segment of fans desperately wanted it to be.
A lot of the user complaints centered around the marketing. Fans felt totally misled by the promotional posters that promised a scorched earth apocalypse.
Yeah, the posters literally showed Homelander floating over a burning planet.
So viewers wanted a massive world-ending spectacle. They wanted cities falling. Instead, they got an intimate, psychological character drama playing out in a carpeted corporate office. They also complained heavily about unresolved storylines, particularly regarding the characters from the Gen V spinoff, whose faces were mostly ignored here.
It's the classic danger of letting marketing hype dictate narrative expectations. But if you've really been paying attention, the show has never truly been about world-ending stakes in the traditional Marvel or DC sense.
Right.
It has always, from day one, been about the intimate corruption of the human soul.
And speaking of the real world colliding with the fiction,
Yeah.
we cannot talk about this finale without unpacking the Elon Musk feud.
Oh, this was wild.
The episode introduced a minor character named Gunter Van Ellis. He's a space-obsessed billionaire mogul who wears a black cap and weirdly obsesses over global fertility rates.
Wasn't exactly subtle.
Not at all.
Mhm.
It was widely and immediately interpreted by commentators as a direct, unflattering parody of Elon Musk, and Homelander kills him almost immediately.
Right.
The real-life Elon Musk took to the platform X to call the finale pathetic,
To which Eric Kripke publicly responded, "I'll never get a better review."
which is just hilarious.
It is peak meta-satire. We have to look at that exchange objectively as a piece of cultural meta-narrative. The Boys has spent 5 years aggressively satirizing everything in our culture: corporate overreach, political extremism, celebrity worship, and especially the untouchable billionaire class.
Right.
When a show whose entire brand is poking the bear actually gets a thin-skinned reaction from the very figures it parodies, the lines between the fiction and the real world just completely evaporate.
It's a bizarre hall of mirrors. It's almost like the show leaked off the screen and infected reality. And Antony Starr, the actor who plays Homelander, actually responded to the fans demanding a tidy, action-packed resolution. He went on social media and just said, "Life is messy, nothing ends up tidy."
And that quote from Starr perfectly synthesizes the entire controversy. This raises an incredibly important question about audience entitlement and media literacy today.
How so?
Well, here we have a show that spent half a decade ruthlessly critiquing toxic fandom, extreme polarization, and the childish demand for simplistic black and white narratives where the good guy always punches the bad guy.
And then what happens?
When the show delivered a finale that refused to be simplistic, it faced a deeply polarized, demanding reaction from a vocal segment of its own audience. The satire became reality. The audience, in many ways, mirrored the exact entitled behaviors the show had been warning them about for years.
That is heavy. It's like watching people complain that a mirror makes them look bad rather than just looking at themselves.
Yeah.
So let's try to pull all these threads together for you as we wrap up. The Boys finale, Blood and Bone, absolutely refused to give us a clean cinematic victory lap.
No, it denied us the glorious final battle we thought we wanted.
Exactly.
Instead, it delivered a deeply messy, painfully human conclusion. It showed us that the massive institutions of power, the vaults of the world, survive almost everything.
The system always wins.
It does. The so-called gods of this universe don't die in glorious blazes of light. They die whimpering, powerless, and begging on the floor. And the only real triumph isn't found in burning the corrupt system to the ground, because, as Butcher proved, that just turns you into a monster yourself. The real triumph is finding the strength to walk away, to heal your trauma, and to live a quiet life.
It's a profoundly sobering thought. We came for the blood, the guts, and the spectacle, and we left with a complex meditation on grief, trauma, and the indestructible nature of capitalism.
It really is. And as we close the book on this deep dive into the Boys, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We watch these characters bleed, suffer, and sacrifice for years trying to tear down Vought. But if massive systems of power like Vought are truly indestructible, if a new Stan Edgar will always inevitably rise from the ashes to take control of the boardroom, is the ultimate heroic act fighting that system until it finally destroys you? Or is the truest form of heroism simply choosing to walk away and stop playing their game altogether?
That is definitely something to think about the next time you look at the real-world institutions around us. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly complex, bloody, and fascinating journey through the end of an era. See you again in the next episode of this podcast.